All right, so are you ready? Let's dive into some IELTS prep. Today, we're tackling vocabulary, which can feel like a huge part of getting ready for this exam.
Absolutely. It's essential.
But don't worry, we've got a great guide to help us out. It's called IELTS Vocabulary Workbook, a weekly study plan. And trust me, this is not your typical boring vocabulary list.
Right. It's much more than that.
It's all about giving you a clear plan and the tools to actually use what you learn effectively.
Yeah, to really communicate, not just memorize a bunch of random words.
Exactly. So let's break down this week-by-week plan. Week 1, what's the focus?
Foundation building.
Love it. And what I think is so cool about this workbook is how personalized it is. It covers like everything from general vocabulary to those super specific topic-related terms. Plus, it gets into collocations, idioms, even synonyms, antonyms, and paraphrasing. I mean, those are pure gold for scoring high on the IELTS.
Yeah, it's all about building a system that truly works for you.
I like that. So week 1 is like, what? Laying the groundwork.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to have those strong foundational elements in place.
Makes total sense. Now, speaking of foundations, week 1 tackles some of those big, common IELTS themes, education, health, technology, environment, culture, those sorts of things.
Right. All the important ones.
And they suggest, I think, starting with 10 to 15 words per topic each week, which honestly feels so much more manageable than trying to cram a million words all at once.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Consistency is key.
For sure. Now, let's take one of those themes as an example. Let's say the environment. It's not just learning random words about trees, right?
Of course not.
What kind of environmental issues are we likely to see in IELTS materials? I'm guessing climate change is up there, sustainable living, pollution. These are huge topics these days.
They're hot topics.
Right. So words like, sustainability, conservation, biodegradable, those are the kinds of words we might run into.
Exactly. In reading passages, maybe in listening sections, maybe even speaking prompts.
So it's not just what the word means. It's also why it matters in those bigger IELTS themes. I'm getting it.
That's the idea. Connecting those words to those broader ideas IELTS likes to explore.
Makes so much more sense now. All right, so you've got this foundation from week 1, week 2. Where do we go from there? What happens?
Week 2, we get laser focused.
Ooh, laser focused. How so?
Okay, remember all those speaking and writing topics you're likely to get on the exam? Well, in week 2, that's where you pick out vocabulary that fits those topics perfectly.
Oh, so it's like getting the right tools for the job, right?
Exactly.
You wouldn't, bring a swimsuit to climb a mountain.
Right. You need the right gear for the right situation.
Exactly. So let's imagine, what's a common IELTS topic? Technology, probably, right?
Yes, a big one.
What kinds of words would fit into that theme?
Well, think about those buzzwords we hear all the time. Innovation, digital divide, maybe automation, definitely artificial intelligence.
Yeah, those are everywhere these days. And they're probably going to pop up on the IELTS too, right?
Oh, definitely. Super relevant.
So we're actually learning vocabulary that's useful in the real world too, not just stuck in some test prep bubble. But, okay, here's my question. How do we go from just knowing a word to actually using it well?
That's the key, isn't it?
Right.
The workbook, it really stresses this idea of practice. Writing practice sentences and actually saying them out loud. You've got to make those words part of what you actively use,
So it's not just having a mental dictionary. It's about actually speaking the language, putting it into action.
Exactly.
Like knowing the ingredients for a cake versus actually baking it.
Yes. You got to get your hands dirty. And here's where things get a little more interesting.
Oh, okay. I like interesting. Tell me more.
The workbook brings up this idea of collocations. Words that naturally go together. This is how your language sounds more fluent, more natural.
Ooh, collocations. Sounds kind of fancy. What does that actually mean, though? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Think about it this way. You wouldn't say do progress, would you?
No, I guess not.
You'd say make progress. And you wouldn't say fast advancement. You'd say rapid advancement. It's subtle, but it makes a big difference.
Wow, you're right. I've never thought about it like that before. It's like there are these little word pairings that we use all the time without even realizing it.
Exactly. And mastering them can make you sound so much more sophisticated.
Okay, I'm convinced collocations are important. But wouldn't some collocations sound overused or a bit cliche? How do we know which ones to use and which ones to avoid?
It's about finding that sweet spot, isn't it? You want to sound natural, not like you're reading from a textbook. And that's where paying attention to how native speakers use language really comes in handy.
Gotcha. So we're building our foundation, we're getting topic specific, and now we're adding collocations to the mix. Week 3, what's next?
Week 3. Well, that's where we master some secret weapons that can really boost your score.
Secret weapons. Now you've really got my attention. What are we talking about here?
Collocations and idioms. These are the things that a lot of test takers tend to overlook, but they can really make a difference.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break them down one by one. Collocations, we've got a bit of a handle on now, but why are they so important, and what kinds of collocations are we looking at?
Well, think of collocations almost like they're these pre-built phrases, phrases you can just smoothly plug into your speaking and your writing. And really help you, save time and mental energy during that exam, right? So you can just focus on getting your ideas across.
So instead of trying to, build the perfect sentence from scratch in my head, I can just grab one of these ready-to-go collocations and bam, instant fluency. I like it.
That's the idea. The workbook has some great examples, too, some really high-scoring collocations that are pretty much like IELTS Gold. Things like take initiative or pose a challenge or significant impact, gain insight.
Ooh, gain insight. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Sounds so much more sophisticated than just saying, learn something,
Exactly.
But here's a thought. Wouldn't using these all the time sound a bit, forced or unnatural? How do we know which ones to use and when?
That's a great point. It's not about just, stuffing your answers with as many collocations as you can. It's about using them in the right way at the right time.
So quality over quantity, basically.
Exactly.
Don't just, throw a bunch of spices in a dish and hope for the best.
Right. You want it to be balanced. The workbook recommends writing down maybe 10 collocations each day and then trying to actively use them, in practice IELTS answers. So you're not just learning them passively.
So we're actually putting those words to work. It's like, taking the car for a test drive, not just looking at it in the showroom.
Exactly. So, for example, imagine they ask you, what are the benefits of studying abroad?
Ooh, yeah, classic IELTS question.
Instead of just saying, it helps students learn, you could say, studying abroad allows students to gain valuable insights into different cultures and perspectives.
Ooh, that's good.
Right.
Gain valuable insights. That's way better than just learn.
And it uses that collocation we were talking about.
It all ties together. All right, so we've got collocations down. What about these idioms? I'll admit, those sometimes make my head spin a little. How do we even know which ones to use?
Yeah, they can be tricky. The key is to choose idioms that fit naturally, and again, less is more.
Okay, don't overdo it.
The workbook suggests, sticking to idioms that really align with those common IELTS themes.
Ah, so it's like picking the right accessory for an outfit.
Exactly. You want something that complements your style.
You wouldn't wear a sparkly tiara to a job interview.
Exactly. It would be a bit much. So let's say you're talking about the challenges of learning a new language. You could say something like, it's like trying to crack a tough nut.
Okay, that's a good one.
Or if you're talking about the benefits of, not giving up, persevering, you could say, where there's a will, there's a way.
Ooh, I love that one. Where there's a will, there's a way. Super motivating. But wouldn't using too many idioms make me sound a little weird? I'm trying too hard.
Yeah, you're right. It's about finding that balance, One or two well-placed idioms can really add some flavor. But overdoing it can sound, a bit contrived.
So it's adding hot sauce to a dish.
A good analogy.
Just a little bit for a kick, but not so much that your mouth is on fire. All right, we've covered collocations, we've covered idioms. Where are we headed next on this IELTS vocabulary journey?
Well, week 4 is all about finesse. We're talking synonyms, antonyms, and paraphrasing.
Ooh, finesse. That sounds fancy.
It's about expressing yourself in a really nuanced way and avoiding repetition, which is super important in IELTS.
So it's we've built the house, we've got the furniture in, now we're adding all the little details that make it really shine.
Exactly. The workbook really emphasizes expanding your range of synonyms. Instead of just saying important all the time, what else could you say?
Crucial, significant, vital, essential.
Yes. All good options. And instead of just increase, what about rise or surge, grow, boost?
So instead of just having black and white, we've got this whole rainbow of colors to choose from.
Exactly. More synonyms equal more expressive power.
Especially in the writing section, right? Where repetition can really hurt your score.
Definitely. By using a variety of synonyms, your writing sounds more sophisticated and avoids being too repetitive.
So we're showing the examiners that we're not just like parrots repeating the same words over and over again. We've got range.
Exactly. Let's test this out. Give me some synonyms for happy.
Oh, okay. Joyful, delighted, cheerful, content, elated. Oh, there are so many.
See? You've got it. And what about some antonyms for happy?
All right, let's flip it. Sad, unhappy, uh-oh, miserable, dejected, gloomy. Yeah.
Perfect. Opposites are important too.
Right.
It helps you be more precise. Now let's talk about paraphrasing. This is where you really show the examiners you can handle language. You're flexible.
Paraphrasing. That sounds a bit intimidating, I have to admit. Is this where we get into those, like, super complex grammar structures and stuff?
Not at all. It's just about expressing the same idea but in different ways. Like if you were explaining something to a friend, you might use different words and different sentences, but the basic idea is the same.
So it's like, I don't know, taking a different route on a road trip.
Exactly.
You're still going to the same destination.
You've got it. The workbook suggests using those IELTS Task 1 sentences to practice. For example, instead of saying, the graph shows a rise in sales, you could say, sales experienced an upward trend.
Ooh, upward trend. That sounds way more dynamic.
Right.
So we're showing off our ability to play with language a little bit.
Exactly. And the more you practice this, the easier it gets.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. Building that foundation, topic-specific vocabulary, collocations, idioms, synonyms, antonyms, and now paraphrasing. My brain is like bursting with all these new tools. But how do we actually make sure all of this translates into success on exam day?
Well, that's where week 5 comes in. It's all about making sure those words aren't just sitting there in your brain. You got to use them. It's about putting everything into practice.
So it's like, okay, we've built this awesome vocabulary machine.
Right.
Now we're taking it out for a spin.
Exactly.
Week 5, what's the plan? What do we actually do?
Well, first and foremost, review. Review is key EY. Think of it like going to the gym, but for your vocabulary.
Oh, I like that vocab gym.
You wouldn't just lift weights once and expect to, be totally ripped.
Right. Oh.
Got to keep going back. So we're going to revisit that workbook regularly. Focus on any areas that are still tricky for you.
Okay. So consistent review. But it's not just about looking at the words again, right? We've got to actually USE them.
Right. You've got to put them into practice. The workbook, it suggests really trying to simulate those real IELTS scenarios. So imagine you're in that speaking test and they ask you to describe, I don't know, maybe a technological advancement, something that's had an impact on your life. This is your chance to use all that vocabulary we've been working on.
Okay. Challenge accepted. Let's say I'm talking about online learning platforms, like how they become so popular. How can I use some of those fancy words we've learned?
Well, instead of just saying technology is, changing fast, what if you used rapid advancement?
Rapid advancement. Ooh, I like it.
And then rather than saying online learning was, important for you, you could say it had a significant impact on your learning journey.
Significant impact. See, I'm already sounding smarter, but I don't want to sound robotic or too formal. How do we balance showcasing our vocabulary with sounding natural?
Yeah, good point. You have to find the right moments, to sprinkle in those impressive words and phrases, not just throw everything in at once.
Okay, so be strategic. Don't just dump out the entire spice rack on our dish.
Exactly. And what about those idioms we talked about?
Ooh, right. Idioms.
Let's say at first you were hesitant about online learning, but then you ended up really loving it. You could say it was a blessing in disguise.
A blessing in disguise. Oh, I love that. And it shows that the examiner, I've got a handle on those idiomatic expressions. It's like we're taking all these different pieces of vocabulary and making this tapestry of fluency.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And, to really seal the deal, the workbook recommends taking practice tests. It's the best way to see how you're doing.
Yeah. Practice tests. Can't avoid them forever. But I know they're important. It's good to get comfortable with that format, right? The timing and all that.
Right. And don't forget, you can record yourself, like when you're doing the speaking sections. Listen back. See how you sound.
Oh, that's a great tip. It's like having a language coach right there in my pocket. We've covered so much in this deep dive. So much. From building that solid foundation to mastering collocations, idioms. We talked about synonyms and antonyms, paraphrasing, and finally putting it all into practice with review and those all-important practice tests. What a journey.
It has been quite a journey. And remember, this is just the beginning, right? Building your vocabulary is an ongoing process. It's something you can keep working on. It's all about enjoying language and making it a part of your everyday life.
Couldn't agree more. And I think this deep dive has given our listeners not just the tools to conquer the IELTS, but the inspiration to keep learning and keep exploring language. It's a fascinating world out there.
It is. Who knows? Maybe you'll end up writing your own vocabulary guide someday.
Maybe. But for now, we're focused on acing that IELTS. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Remember, consistent effort, smart strategies, and tons of practice, that's how you'll succeed with vocabulary.
We're rooting for you.
And that's a wrap for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep those vocabulary muscles flexed and keep diving deep.